Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a chance on a spotlight and just plunging headfirst into the horror landscape of the 2010s.
hmm
And this wasn't just another decade for frights. I mean, the 2010s were absolutely stacked, defining an era of what we're calling terrifying greatness.
That's a perfect way to put it. We've gone through the source material to basically identify the greatest, most enduring movie in every major subgenre from that era.
Right.
So for you, the listener, think of this as your essential kind of accelerated guide to understanding how modern horror cinema really evolved.
Our mission is pretty straightforward. We're looking at the 10 films our sources crown as the best in their class,
Yeah.
and we're going to dissect why the 2010s proved to be such a crucial time for the genre.
Yeah, we're talking about a decade that produced, everything from Oscar winners to these huge international box office juggernauts.
And across all these different subgenres, found footage, sophisticated body horror, you name it.
Exactly. And we're not just going to list them. We'll be focusing on the mechanics that made these specific films stand out, the narratives, the aesthetics, and the ambition that elevated them beyond just, popcorn scares.
Into certified classics, or in some cases, total game changers.
For sure. The films that permanently shifted their categories.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I think we should start with the films that defined the decade through critical acclaim, serious narrative flips, and all that awards buzz.
The high-concept horror that critics just couldn't ignore.
Exactly.
And if we're talking about critical success, we absolutely have to start with psychological horror and Jordan Peele's 2017 phenomenon, Get Out.
Oh, calling it a phenomenon is almost an understatement. The sources describe it as a twisted dark comedy and a bizarre, unpredictable thriller.
Right.
The setup is so deceptively simple. An African-American photographer goes upstate to meet his wealthy white girlfriend's family, and then...
And then things get very, very weird. The family slowly reveals this insidious, systematic plan that is just horrifying in its implications.
What's so fascinating here isn't just the box office success, but the level of critical validation it got.
Oh, completely. Get Out didn't just get nominations. It won. It earned Jordan Peele the Best Original Screenplay Academy Award, which is so rare for a horror movie.
It really is. I mean, no discussion of 2010's horror is complete without it. It just masterfully used genre tropes to talk about modern social and racial dynamics.
The genius for me lies in how it externalizes that societal anxiety.
It's a sunken place.
The sunken place, that psychological abyss where he's trapped. It became instant shorthand for feeling powerless.
Yeah, it uses that recognizable horror mechanic, the feeling of being observed and trapped, and just infuses it with this profound meaning. It made horror relevant to a much wider conversation.
And prove that high concept and terrifying filmmaking are not mutually exclusive at all.
So if Get Out redefined what psychological horror could do critically, then I think Your Next from 2011 did the same thing for the slasher subgenre by just totally flipping the script.
Oh, that film is essential viewing. It takes the whole home invasion premise and just turns it inside out.
It's basically an action-packed horror thriller. A family reunion goes violently wrong when these masked killers attack.
But the key difference, the thing that sets it apart, is the protagonist, Erin.
Played by Sharni Vincent, yeah.
Right. And where most slashers rely on a final girl who survives through, sheer luck or endurance.
Erin is immediately proactive.
She's brilliant. The sources identify her as one of modern horror's most capable final girls because she doesn't just endure. She uses her unique survivalist upbringing to systematically turn the tables on them.
She breaks all the cliches. She becomes the hunter, not the hunted.
Exactly. The film becomes less about escape and more about this violent counterattack. It's so cathartic.
It really is, in a way that traditional slashers often deny you.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving from external threats to something intensely internal and psychological, let's talk monster horror. Our sources overwhelmingly point to Jennifer Kent's The Babadook from 2014.
A film that is cited as one of the most relentlessly unsettling horror movies of the entire decade.
And it's definitely not your typical jump scare fest.
No, not at all. It's described as a monster movie unlike anything else. Deeply atmospheric and just so tense.
And what makes it stand out as a monster movie is the nature of the antagonist itself, right? The Babadook isn't just some shadow in the corner.
No, it's explicitly introduced as a manifestation of a widowed mother's profound, unaddressed grief for her late husband.
Which is the entire engine of the film. It uses the physical presence of the monster, that top-hatted figure from the creepy pop-up book, to externalize the consuming nature of trauma and depression.
It's a great question, though. Does framing the monster as grief actually make it less scary? Or does it make it more unsettling?
The sources all suggest the latter. Because the monster is tied to something so universal, parental anxiety, deep-seated regret, it just acts as this intense anxiety inducer.
The horror comes from the family drama itself, the creeping dread.
Right, it relies on building suspense, not on cheap scares. It makes the horror unavoidable because it lives inside the house, inside her mind.
And that commitment to thematic depth is such a hallmark of the 2010s.
Which is a perfect segue, because here's where it gets really interesting, connecting this to global cinema. The 2010s were just flooded with brilliant international horror.
And films that relied heavily on thematic or, visual sophistication.
Exactly. So let's look at body horror. A subgenre popularized by Cronenberg, of course, focused on the unsettling transformation of the human form.
For the 2010s, the sources overwhelmingly chose a Spanish film, The Skin I Live In, from 2011, directed by Pedro Almodóvar, starring Antonio Banderas.
And it's such a unique entry in the body horror canon. Banderas plays a brilliant plastic surgeon, Dr. Ledgard.
Right, and he has this mysterious captive woman living in his isolated estate, and he's testing a new form of prosthetic skin on her.
It sounds like straightforward medical horror, but it quickly morphs into something much more twisted.
It's a slasher, that's for sure. It's a compelling, high-drama narrative about identity, revenge, the ethical limits of science. And while it has those disturbing surgical scenes you need for body horror.
The real genius is the twist.
Oh, the twist, it's incredible. It's one of the most unnerving twists in modern horror. It just fundamentally changes how you see everything that came before. The horror is born from psychological violation.
And speaking of transformation and atmosphere, next up is science fiction horror with 2013's Under the Skin.
Wow. Yeah, that one is a visual and sonic masterpiece. It just operates on a completely different level.
Absolutely. And Scarlett Johansson gives this captivating performance not through dialogue, but just through her unsettling presence.
As this mysterious extraterrestrial in a human guise. And she roams the Scottish countryside, luring these lonely men into a strange, terrifying black void.
The sources praised it so heavily. They cited powerful, thought-provoking themes about objectification and alienation, along with flawless visuals. What makes it a classic contender so soon?
I think it's the atmosphere. The director, Jonathan Glazer, used extensive hidden camera work.
Right, so Johansson was interacting with real, unsuspecting people.
Exactly. And that technique gives the film this almost documentary-like realism, which makes the fantastical element, the alien, feel terrifyingly present in our world. The dread comes from sheer aesthetic precision.
That's a powerful idea. Using realism to enhance the unreal terror.
Okay, so if we move from high visual art to raw cinematic mechanics, let's talk found footage.
A genre that got very saturated after Paranormal Activity.
It really did. But our sources highlight a major standout from 2010, the Norwegian dark fantasy film Troll Hunter.
This choice is fascinating because it proves the subgenre still had teeth if filmmakers were willing to innovate.
So it follows a college film crew documenting strange bear deaths, and then they stumble upon this mysterious, reclusive poacher.
And they soon discover he's not hunting bears. He's hunting mythical, colossal trolls that have broken containment. So why does this one stand above the others? I mean, found footage and huge fantasy creatures, that sounds like a tough mix. The CGI could look so cheap.
And somehow, Troll Hunter walks that line successfully. It's described as thrilling, dark, and oddly funny. And crucially, it commits completely to the mockumentary style.
Okay.
So the handheld camera and the gritty, realistic setting, it all contrasts so sharply with the ridiculous scale of the trolls, which actually enhances the feeling that you're watching real documentary proof.
So its reputation has just gotten better over time.
Yeah, it solidified itself as one of the best examples of integrating large-scale creatures into that framework.
That sets us up perfectly for our third segment, which is all about films known for relentless pacing, high violence, and just intense, relentless dread.
Starting with zombie horror, a subgenre that's been everywhere since Night of the Living Dead.
And for the 2010s, the peak was, without a doubt, the South Korean film Train to Busan from 2016.
An absolute masterpiece of the genre.
The film is just pure high-octane adrenaline. It's cited as one of the most pulse-pounding and intense zombie films ever made.
And that non-stop claustrophobic action, primarily on a speeding bullet train, it's just incredible.
The South Korean approach to zombies, they're so fast, frantic, almost acrobatic, it makes for spectacular action.
It does. But the real distinction, the reason it's crowned the best, is its investment in character. The sources all praise Train to Busan for balancing that frantic action with true emotional stakes.
Especially that father-daughter relationship.
Exactly. You watch people you genuinely root for trying to survive, and you know the odds are just stacked against them.
Yeah, a lot of zombie films just focus on the horde or the survival mechanics, but this film makes sure you are emotionally devastated when characters you love meet a tragic end.
It really proves that even the oldest subgenres can be revitalized with a high-stakes, character-driven premise and just world-class pacing.
Okay, now, if we strip away the emotional investment and just want sheer, uncompromising gore, we look at splatter horror.
Right. A subgenre that focuses on extreme, often exaggerated on-screen violence. And every decade seems to ramp up the shock factor.
And the crown for the goriest and most shocking of the decade goes to Terrifier from 2018.
Oh, yeah. Director Damien Leone aimed for the fences with that one. The sources highlighted it as one of the most brutal movies of all time. It was deliberately designed to be appallingly gory and disgusting.
It sounds like it fully embraced its identity then. What makes it stick, beyond just the sheer volume of blood?
It has to be the antagonist, Art the Clown.
Played by David Howard Thornton.
Right, and Art became this iconic figure because of his silence, his expressive, mime-like cruelty. It just amplified the terror.
Uh-huh.
And crucially, the sources note the low budget forced them to rely heavily on practical, visceral effects instead of clean CGI. That grindhouse aesthetic made the over-the-top violence feel raw and immediate.
And that's what launched it as this successful cult classic franchise that just holds nothing back. Okay, moving from the visceral brutality of Art the Clown to pure, relentless, supernatural terror, we land on Hereditary from 2018.
Ari Aster's nightmarish creation.
Yeah.
It was a major moment for the supernatural subgenre late in the decade.
For sure. It focuses on a grieving family spiraling into madness when they realize they're being targeted by a mysterious pagan cult.
And here, the acting and direction just elevated to another realm.
Toni Collette's performance as the mother, Annie, is described as commanding and relentlessly powerful. I mean, truly Oscar-worthy.
Criminally snubbed by the Academy.
Oh, absolutely.
And the sources are really clear. The success of Hereditary is driven by its control. Aster masterfully builds this psychological tension. You feel the family's pain and confusion long before the supernatural stuff fully takes over.
The tightness of the story and the sustained mounting suspense, it just pushes the film into legendary status. It's cited as being on par with some of the scariest films in movie history.
Yeah, it gave that kind of elevated, deep-seated dread tremendous credibility.
We've covered everything from psychological mind games to extreme gore, but we can't wrap up the 2010s without talking about the blended genre specifically, comedy horror.
A pairing with a very strong history. You got Shaun of the Dead, Evil Dead 2.
And the undisputed 2010s champion here is the mockumentary gem, What We Do in the Shadows from 2014.
Oh, what a great film.
Directed by and starring Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement, and it follows 4 highly dysfunctional and wildly out-of-touch vampires living as flatmates in modern-day New Zealand.
The mockumentary format is just perfect for it because it lets the humor flow so naturally from the absurdity of the situation.
Right. The comedy's all about these bumbling bloodsuckers trying to pay rent, get into nightclubs, and just fit into the modern world.
And it brilliantly pokes fun at every single vampire trope while having so much genuine charm and wit. It's horror comedy that works because you're invested in the characters, not just the punchlines.
So when we synthesize all this, what does the complete picture of 2010's horror really look like? The range we cover, I mean, from Get Out's social commentary to Train to Busan's action to the dread of Hereditary, it just proves the genre's consistent growth and significance.
The final synthesis confirms it. The decade successfully defined new cinematic terror by embracing high-concept storytelling, nurturing strong international vision, prioritizing character, and, pushing the boundaries of brutality.
Horror thrived because it wasn't afraid to subvert every single expectation.
And push thematic limits in every single subgenre.
It was a truly incredible era for those of us who love a good scare. But as we reflect on this remarkable lineup, our source analysis did note a specific gap.
That's right. While we identified the best films in body horror, slasher, zombie, and so on, the sources noted it was a pretty rough decade for films featuring classic creatures like werewolves and vampires.
At least in their traditional serious, non-comedic forms.
Right.
Which raises an important question for you, the listener, to mull over. Given the phenomenal success of films that redefined the genre, like Get Out and the Babadook, what traditional horror creature or trope do you think is next in line for a truly game-changing revitalization in the current decade?
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Until next time.